This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwallpod podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 359 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Wutzko, and today we will talk about Dortmund's 2-1 loss away to Freiburg, and we will preview Saturday's match against TSG Hoffenheim. Fun! For all that and more, joins me Lars Poyman. Hello Lars, how are you doing today?
Hello Stefan, I'm in a foul mood and thus perfectly prepared to talk about first beep of the day, the shit show that was the Freiburg game.
Yeah, such a fun game. But obviously, I don't know, there's so many angles on how to approach this. But I think the most obvious thing I need to say before that is the situation in the Bundesliga table, because right now Dortmund are 16 points behind Bayern. They are 9 points behind Leipzig, who are in second place, 6 behind Wolfsburg, and 4 points behind Frankfurt. They are level on points with Gladbach, and I think only 2 points ahead now of said Freiburg. And this obviously is also in the context of Lucien Favre getting sacked on matchday 11, which marked his 4th loss. And now Edin Terzic managed to mark his 4th loss within 9 match days. So Lars, before we maybe talk about the Freiburg game, or maybe in the context of that, do you think that switching from Favre to Terzic was a good idea, and to, instigate you a little bit more, do you think that there were improvements, or point them out to me, that Mats Hummels talked about, because I so far am scratching my head?
I think you have to look at it twofold. I think it was perfectly within reason to let Favre go. I think he was kind of at the end of the road and a lame duck, because everybody and their mother knew he wasn't going to get another contract extension after the season, or, towards the end of the season. So
I can confirm, my mom said that Favre needs to go. And she doesn't even watch Dortmund, so yes.
Yeah, and I mean, these situations kind of take a life on their own, especially when results are bad. And I think they needed to show a reaction to the heavy defeat against Stuttgart. But as I said at the time, and I'm pretty sure others have as well, going with an inexperienced assistant coach who was still with the team before then. So, shoulders at least part of the blame himself, giving him this massive job and, the responsibility really of qualifying for the Champions League in Corona times, which is of huge financial importance for Dortmund. I don't think that was necessarily a particularly smart decision. I can understand to a degree that they wanted to go with a younger coach who could talk to this generation of players, wanted someone with insights and some fresh ideas, obviously. And as for the Hummels praise, which I too found completely tone deaf after losing 2-1 against Freiburg, when the last coach to lose against Freiburg was Jürgen Klopp, which is now a very long time ago. I mean, Christian Streich had never won against Dortmund before. I still can understand to a degree what he's talking about, because I think in terms of their intensity levels, in terms of their pressing, they have been better than they were in the late stage under Favre. And to an extent, I can even understand his talking about, Hummels is talking about, having bad luck in the Freiburg game. But I think, as I said, it's tone deaf in the general context of a season in which Dortmund are so far behind where they should be. To talk about, this game in particular, obviously you can say that Freiburg scored a wonder goal and were helped for their second goal by a goalkeeping error. And other than that, I don't really recall too many chances of Freiburg's, whereas Dortmund arguably did enough in terms of creating goal-scoring opportunities to win the game. But I mean, you have to take the general context into things. You can't just put this one game in isolation and say, well, we'll be fine, which, in normal seasons they might be. I mean, you can lose away to Freiburg, which is a very solid Bundesliga team these days. But as I said, in the broader context, it was tone deaf and kind of shows, that there's still a disconnect between reality and the internal viewpoints. And I think that is true for more than just the on-field performance at Dortmund.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm a bit disappointed that you made this answer sound so reasonable, because I thought you had a little bit more oomph in you, Lars, after announcing your fall mood. But little disclaimer, I watched the first half. I was still in bed, actually, because I forgot to set an alarm and I was up till 2 a.m. or so on Friday night, so I didn't really particularly feel getting out of bed when I woke up in a sweat, dreaming of set pieces at like 9:25 or so, and then I watched the game on my phone and got up at halftime. But even though I was just watching it on my little handheld device, I could very much see that Dortmund did fantastically struggle to build up through the middle. I think that was part of the plan that Freiburg had. But at the same time, another game where Julian Brandt completely disappointed me. He was sort of just standing around, hardly phased to move around. I don't know if it was just the coaching staff or players themselves constantly asking him to move his ass. And I think it was the right decision to sub off Brandt at halftime. But if you listen to Emre Can after the game, or Hummels, that say that they didn't play poorly, I might agree with that. There wasn't a poor performance, but it was a far cry from a good performance. And if you think about Dortmund's, future Champions League, whatever you want to call it, being in peril like that, a performance that Brandt showed, I find as a fan watching this, it's an insult. That's a slap to the face that you just are standing around, not really trying to move out of the cover shadows, not trying to, try to build any connections, any pass angles with your teammates, and defensively hardly track back and, make a couple of alibi runs here and there, but nothing really forcing the issue. We've seen this a couple of times, not only from Brandt and other players, but I feel like it was sort of symbolic for Dortmund's lethargic demeanor in midfield. And obviously there's this Twitter account between the posts that does these nice pass maps and illustrates them. And what we got against Freiburg from Dortmund is the so-called U of death, because Dortmund had all the position basically between their center backs and then passed it on the wings, but hardly found anyone in the middle. I haven't looked up how many touches Haaland had, and Reus and Brandt were also sort of, very isolated in the middle. Just from that point of view, Lars, I think for me personally, that's maybe even more heartbreaking than anything else, if you talk about intensity or whatnot. But the fact that Dortmund could not overcome the tactical ploy of Christian Streich, and I want to say that for most part, it was a pretty simplistic man-marking scheme. And if you think back to Borussia Dortmund, when they utilize their potential and combine a lot, this is exactly the sort of tactic they, in theory, prevail against, because their combination play is just too fast for opposing players to keep up. So watching Dortmund have zero ideas and not really forcing the issue, those two things is more annoying to me than conceding one shot from distance and another one, as you said, from a goalkeeping error. I don't know how you see that, but I feel like when we talk in German, the word is Spielidee. Your style, philosophy, or however you want to approach a game. There are several ways to interpret that. can either be the greater philosophy or just the given tactic of your match day and your game plan. I didn't really see one, Lars. Maybe you can enlighten me here what Dortmund's plan actually was, because I can't figure it out what Terzic instructed his players to do and not to do.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, it was like wireless in Germany. They all had connectivity issues. As you said, the U of death, the U of destruction or whatever. I mean, when you have zero connectivity between your midfielders and everything is basically down to, maybe a Hummels long ball or Guerrero creating something out of nothing, it's not going to cut it against a disciplined side like Freiburg, who have been together for quite some time, at least the key players against the ball. So I too struggle to kind of figure out what the exact plan was. I think it might have just been, get the 11 best players on the pitch at the moment, which would explain why Emre Can played in this hybrid role on the right side of the fence.
Yeah, that's our fault, because Matthias and I were saying in a previous episode that Moray is a non-starter right now, and you either need to pick Piszczek or Can as a right back. So if that didn't work out, I'll take full responsibility. I'm sorry.
Yeah, good on you, Stefan. But still, I mean, I think the plan probably was, as I said, put the best players on and hope for the best with your attacking talent. And granted, that can work and has worked in times, given how just plain good, Jadon Sancho is, and Haaland doesn't really need a lot of chances. But he also only had really one against Freiburg that I can remember. Obviously, if that goes in,
even to be honest.
Yeah, you were still in bed, Stefan. It was after like 4 or 5 minutes, and Florian Müller kept the ball out just ahead of the goal line. So Haaland was kind of falling down. So it wasn't really like the, clear-cut, beautiful play kind of chance, but he was there in the box, and more often than not, he will put those away, and you were probably looking at a much different game after going up within 5 minutes. But obviously,
didn't Emre Can also hit the bar or something?
Yeah, but I mean, that's not down to their Spielidee. That's just Emre Can having a pop from 25 or so yards. So I really don't understand what the plan was, just as you didn't. And, I think this is also symptomatic of not just, the current situation and, problems on the pitch, but maybe this is too much of a generalization with too broad a stroke. But I think this is once again a sign for the lack of an identity that this club has in many regards. I mean, I don't think you can right now look at a game in black and white and say this is Borussia Dortmund. And that's something that's been an issue for a while now. But if we think back to the best days, not only under Klopp, but also Tuchel and the early stages of Favre, I think you could have watched the game without color, without commentary, and you would still have been able to tell which of the two sides is Dortmund. And the fact that hasn't been the case for a while now, and definitely isn't the case the last few weeks under Edin Terzic, I think that's quite a problem.
Yeah, I mean, usually there were at least some routines, some so-called automatism, as I like to call them, where you just see on the field that situation X triggers situation Y, players making runs, running into space. And one run triggers another thing. Things you see from well-oiled machines, like, for example, Eintracht Frankfurt, I feel like. I've watched them play against Hoffenheim, their 3-1 win, and you could clearly see that there were certain patterns of behavior on the field that were triggered. And I really do miss that from Dortmund right now. Obviously, players did say, I think Hummels, and I don't know for sure, but I think Can said it too, that they're a bit unlucky right now, that pretty much it feels like every goal they're conceding is going in. And if you look at the...
Yeah, I think every goal they're conceding is definitely going in.
Every shot they're conceding is turning into a goal pretty much. if you look at the expected goal, I think FBref has Freiburg's expected goals at 0.2 and Dortmund's at 1.5. But we do have to talk a little bit about the post-shot expected goals statistics right now, which you can also find at fbref.com, and that sort of tries to evaluate how good goalkeepers are after, the expected goals average of a shot is measured. Then it's sort of compared up against how the goalkeepers fared with it. And the problem really is on that chart is that Dortmund are dead last in that table on the absolute post-shot XG over the entire season now. Obviously, on the top you have Köln Castells right now. He has a positive post-shot XG with 4.5 in the plus. Second is Manuel Neuer with 4.1 at Bayern, and Dortmund, I guess the tag team of Hitz and Bürki, at minus 6.6. So statistically speaking, if you will, and that's obviously only statistically speaking, but say you plug Castells into the Dortmund goal and switch the Dortmund keepers to Wolfsburg, that would sort of mean a 10-goal swing for Dortmund, meaning right now Dortmund have conceded 29 goals, and that would mean, if you round it up, that they would have conceded just 19. It's obviously not something you could apply in reality, but I just want to highlight with that statistic that Dortmund's goalkeeping has been absolutely atrocious this season, and the statistics do reflect that. But yeah, I don't even know what to say, because obviously the shot by Jonathan Schmid, which is also a former teammate of Marvin Hitz, who I think they played together at Augsburg, is obviously one he needs to save. This is something that keeps happening. Lars, is there anything Dortmund can do about that in the near future? And if not, do you think that they are just unlucky or they are bad? Because if they're just unlucky, that would mean things would level out and they save a couple more long shots in the future. Or do you think it's just down to not applying enough pressure on long shots in midfield and narrow angles?
I mean, first of all, sample size is always an issue with expected goals tables within a season. I mean, every time you talk and read about expected goals, you kind of have to add the caveat, especially for those that aren't familiar with these stats, that, these are really not meant to be looked at in short-term windows. And I mean, especially there was a time when after every game, a number of accounts would post expected goals numbers for 90 minutes, which, is definitely not advisable in terms of learning anything. But I think when the data kind of marries your general viewpoint, I think you can use it to an extent. And I think definitely watching all these games, you can't but think that Dortmund do have a goalkeeping issue this season. I think we've talked enough about Roman Bürki and his, low ceiling in terms of his goalkeeping ability. I don't think he's like a top 5 goalkeeper in the Bundesliga, and hasn't been for at least 1.5, maybe 2 seasons. And while I do think that Hitz is a very solid number 2, perhaps even the best number 2 in the Bundesliga, I think you can also see that he's not some miracle worker who just needs an opportunity. I do think that it would have made sense to play Hitz over Bürki, even if Bürki hadn't been injured, which by now we definitely know isn't, a fake injury to make things easier on Terzic. Because we know that Bürki without confidence is much worse than the baseline Bürki, which isn't great this season either. But Hitz making these mistakes, I don't necessarily think the goal he conceded against Paderborn in the cup was a mistake. He didn't really see the shot, and Emre Can tried to deflect it, so there was really not much time to react. And other than that, Hitz played well against Paderborn, if memory serves. But yeah, I mean, by now we know that neither Bürki nor Hitz should be the long-term solution in goal for Dortmund if they are serious about improving every position, which they always should be. So the question is, what happens the rest of the season? And, depending on a number of factors, not least of which, do they make Champions League for next season? Do they have enough money to buy a new number one, which you only should do if it's a real upgrade over Bürki, which, despite our slagging him off, is still a bit iffy. I mean, so much talk about Peter Gulaschi of RB Leipzig over the last few days and weeks, and I wouldn't necessarily say that he's like a clear-cut upgrade over Bürki. When all is said and done, I think he's a more solid option with perhaps a much higher floor, but I wouldn't necessarily say that getting him in would solve your goalkeeping issues for the next 5 or 6 years, which should kind of be the aim when you invest in, a position like goalkeeper, which is really a staple of every good team.
Yeah, do you think that Dortmund should maybe try to poach Alexander Nübel from Bayern Munich, since he is just sitting behind Manuel Neuer right now for the foreseeable future? And I don't know if it was Joachim Löw or another one of the DFB saying that they are questioning the decision for him to not get any playing time these days.
It was Oliver Bierhoff, but I mean, he's not very good, so I don't necessarily think that would be a great idea. And also, even if he was, I think it would be quite humiliating to get Bayern's number 2 in. I mean, did you want them to sign Sven Ulreich before this season? I don't think so.
I don't know. Anyway, we should move on, Lars, because there were a couple of good minutes, maybe 25 minutes, half hour or so. I don't know how long exactly, but I thought that Dortmund improved right away with the introduction of Mahmoud Dahoud and Youssoufa Moukoko for Thomas Delaney and Marco Reus. What do you attribute that phase of pressure to? Do you think it was just a reaction to going down by 2 goals, or do you think that the change in personnel made such a great impact that Freiburg were really pressured, or do you think it's more of how the game went?
I mean, Freiburg were up 2 goals and definitely expected them deeper than before, so it was easier to connect plays together. So, I mean, Dahoud definitely made a positive impact, and I mean, by now there's really no excuse for Terzic not trying him, at least from the start. I mean, he's basically tried every other combination you can think of. I mean, we've seen Delaney with Can, we've seen Delaney with Brandt, I think we've seen Brandt with Can. Bellingham has been in there, so all these midfield combinations haven't really produced the desired results, so the logical thing to do would be to give the next guy a chance. And I do think it's at least a bit encouraging that Dahoud, after not playing in Terzic's first 8 or so games, has now at least been used as a sub a couple of times. And I think Moukoko gives him another dimension in attack. He kind of needs less space than Haaland, I would say. Obviously he got the goal, which was well taken, and he had like the last chance in the game, if I'm not mistaken, even if he scuffed at it a little bit. So
yeah, it was a contested shot because of Rainier being in the mix too.
Yeah, I mean, that's a shocker. They waved the human white flag with the introduction of Rainier, Jesus take the wheel. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely assume, and Terzic talked about it in the press conference as well, that maybe in one of these next few games, playing Moukoko and Haaland might be an option. I think, as I said, you are basically at a stage where everything else hasn't really worked too well, so why not try that stuff?
It's kind of sad that after match day 20, we're still sort of in the throw everything at the wall and see what sticks department. Usually in this part of the season, you should be way further ahead. But yeah, that's football, I guess. Sometimes you find yourself in a situation where nothing works out and you don't really know why. At least from Dortmund's perspective, that's exactly what it looks like. So, but I'm glad that at least something is coming from the bench right now that helps Dortmund and seemingly improves things, because I think that was a point of criticism we had toward Terzic, and I think that improved a little bit in recent games. So at least there's that. So obviously a painful loss for Dortmund. If you look at the expected goals, as I said, an avoidable one. I mean, especially with the goalkeeping error, you at least will think maybe Dortmund could have gotten a point out of this. Anywho, let's move on to the Hoffenheim game, which is on Saturday morning, if I'm not mistaken. This time I would set my alarm. Now, quick personal update. Hazard is back in training. I don't know if he went back to full team training yet. I think Terzic today at the news conference said that he didn't participate in all exercises, and so with 2 training sessions left, he will sort of see whether Hazard will be fit, but I personally expect him probably to be back fully next week, or maybe for the Sevilla match in the Champions League. And also Meunier, Zagadou and Burki are still ruled out, but they are expected to return to the training pitch next week. And obviously Dortmund do play Hoffenheim, who got beaten, as I said previously, by Frankfurt on Sunday 3-1. Hoffenheim right now are in 12th place. They have 22 points. They have 6 wins, 4 draws and 10 losses. Their top scorer obviously is Andrej Kramaric with 13 goals to his name. I am sad to remind everyone that it was him who scored 4 goals in his last visit to the Westfalenstadion, which I think was also 4-0 loss, so he scored 100% of the goals. And their top assister right now is Ilyas Bebu with 4 assists. He scored a very nice goal against Frankfurt. It was a good solo run after coming on at halftime. He just made Hinteregger and who was the other one? The Japanese defender, help me out here, Hasebe. He made them look like corner flags, and nice finish. And that's maybe the kind of goal that Dortmund are prone to concede as well. Now, I think the last 2 times Hoffenheim traveled to the Westfalenstadion, Dortmund failed to win, was the 4-0 loss, and then I think it was throwing away a 3-0 lead, if I remember correctly, Lars. But of recently, Hoffenheim haven't really been in their best form either. So what kind of game are Dortmund fans to expect this time? Is it going to be something along the lines of their 3-1 win against Augsburg?
The hell do I know, Stefan? I mean, however many minutes you watched of Hoffenheim's against Frankfurt is however many more you have watched of them this season than I did, because I only watched the first meeting of these 2 sides, which was pretty drab game decided by Marco Reus. I think he and Haaland came off the bench, and there was like a long ball played over the top and kind of a bouncy bounce, and Reus there to clean up. So I mean, I can basically repeat everything I say when they face these sort of mid-table-ish, closer to relegation than Europe sides, which is it's probably going to depend on Dortmund to dictate how the game goes. And if the last few weeks are any indication, and Augsburg definitely was a positive surprise in that, or not necessarily a surprise, because we both predicted Dortmund to win 3-1 in that game, just to rub it in Matthias's face again. I mean, is there any reason for us to be confident that Dortmund can take care of business against Hoffenheim? Probably not. Is there any real reason to be super scared of Hoffenheim? Probably not. Is that relevant when Dortmund are involved? Probably not. So, I mean, it's anyone's guess how this one goes. I'll be surprising myself with my prediction, because I absolutely have no clue what to expect from this game.
Yeah, I mean, the predicted lineup on who scored from Hoffenheim is obviously Baumann in goal. Then you have Vogt and Posch In central defense, you have Skov and Richards as their fullbacks, and Samaseko, Rudi, Kadrabek and Baumgartner in midfield, and up front, Kramaric and Bebu. So with that, you do have a little bit of pace. I mean, it's an okay Bundesliga team. It's a sort of team that can beat Bayern 4-1, but then lose to, I don't know, Schalke or whatever. Which, did they do that? Wasn't that
Yep.
how things unfolded?
I mean, they beat Bayern in like September and lost to Schalke in mid-January, but potato.
Exactly. Yeah, nevertheless, a classic Bundesliga side in the sense that they're completely unpredictable. Otherwise, they're not really a classic Bundesliga side. So, yeah. I mean, of course, usually I have the feeling that Dortmund like to lose a little bit harder against teams that their fans hate than usually, but I don't know. I'm fairly confident that Dortmund will show a reaction yet again, because I feel like this is sort of their rhythm, that they show a quote-unquote reaction to a loss, then play well, and then pat themselves on the back, and then play crap the next time, and then, gotta show a reaction. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it does not, like, say, Mainz, where they, I think, played well, but didn't get a result. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The one thing I would be pondering here is, well, I'm actually pondering several things, but I agree with you. I would play Dahoud in midfield. Who would you pair him up with?
Delaney.
All right. Would you keep playing Royce, or would you stick someone else there? Maybe play Moukoko and Haaland as a tandem or something like that?
I mean, Royce definitely deserves benching, but neither Reina nor Brandt deserve to have his spot. And given that I'm fairly convinced that they're not going to trot out Torgan Hazard too early again after he was injured coming back in the cup match against Braunschweig, if I'm not mistaken. It's probably going to be Royce. And also, I think this week there was a lot of talk in German press about Terzic giving his leaders a talking to, or stern talking to, after the Freiburg match on Sunday in a team meeting. Apparently he was quite strong in his word choice, so I would expect him to give Royce and, Delaney, Jan, Hummels, obviously. I mean, there's not really too many options there anyway. I mean, I'm expecting him to give them a chance to redeem themselves a bit, and I think, well, it would make sense to play Moukoko and Haaland just to see whether that works. I don't know that they are confident enough right now, and I think playing Dahoud from the start would already be a deviation from course, so I wouldn't expect both of these things to happen.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you have a prediction?
You go first, please.
Since it worked so well the last time, I'm going with a 3-1 again.
I'm going to go with a 1-0 win, where afterwards nobody really knows how that happened.
Yeah, that's fair enough, which is pretty much the first game.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that's literally what we said. But yeah, I'm not gonna go back to that episode to confirm that now. But either way, thank you, Lars, for coming on. We shall be back, obviously, with an episode previewing the Sevilla game. Hopefully Dortmund can show yet another reaction until we are back. In the meantime, as always, thank you for listening, stay safe, and goodbye.